Welcome to LifeSite News in Focus for this September 11th, 2022. Are you ready to stand for freedom? Are you ready to fight against the communist control that's coming to the whole wide world? That's what we're going to look at today in this episode of LifeSite News in Focus. Stay tuned. Here at LifeSite News in Focus, our point is to look back at the weeks before so that we can get ready for the weeks ahead. And we really need to do that now because we can't fall asleep. Some of what has gone on has given us some pause. Restrictions have been lifted, but it's coming back. As we knew over and over and over again, this method of letting it lax during the summer months, and then bring it back with force as the fall comes in, as the months go into October and November, particularly because the elections are coming up in the United States. We've got to be ready. We've got to be ready and realize what we're facing. Do you know what we're facing is very much like what communist China has done. And we know that's coming. But I want to give you an inside look at communist China from someone who's been there and done that, from someone who escaped from China. And imagine this. We're all called to stand for freedom, but we might think we're weak and we're not able to. Imagine if you were blind and still had to stand for freedom. Most of us can see, but you know what? There's an activist. His name is Chen Guangcheng. He's a real hero. He was in China and tried to fight the one-child policy. And he finally escaped, but not without torture, not without absolute brutality. But he stood up under it. And he has a warning for all of us about the encroaching communism in the United States, in Canada, in the UK, and all of the West. You've got to watch this. This interview was done by LifeSite's Claire Chrétien with Chen Guangcheng.
Greetings, everyone. LifeSite News is coming to you today with a special and exclusive interview with Chen Guangcheng, the blind, dissident Chinese activist who fights for civil rights and has fought for civil rights in communist China at great personal cost. Chen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to do this.
With the Olympics happening in China right now, the U.S. and several Western countries are doing a diplomatic boycott of the Olympics. Is this enough?
完全不够，差得很远。
It's not enough at all. It's far from enough. The Communist Party is a mafia organization that has completely kidnapped and controlled the entire country. The idea that Western nations would cooperate with this government, would participate in this kind of event, is embarrassing, and they shouldn't do it. Even though the United States has said publicly that they're doing a diplomatic boycott, in the end they've sent 18 government officials to the games. So I feel that this is a way, it's sort of tricking the American people, and it's going against America and American values. I believe that the whole world should boycott the Chinese Communist Party, and there should be an alliance of democratic countries that should come together to figure out how to eliminate this regime. We shouldn't think that the Chinese Communist Party will harm only the Chinese people. Now the claws of the Chinese Communist Party have extended into all areas of other countries, and the coronavirus is a perfect example of that. It's changed our way of life.
Much of the world has modeled its coronavirus response based on information from China and based on sort of the way that the CCP handled the virus, with lockdowns, really harsh lockdowns. Was this a mistake? What are your thoughts on that?
That hit the wrong. Yeah.
I think this is exactly the wrong thing to do. If we start in the West, if we start doing things according to the way the Chinese Communist Party is doing things, then we are limiting people's freedoms. Then we're becoming just like them, and we're in danger of becoming slaves. There's an example from Wuhan where the Communist Party locked up a family using iron bars, shutting the doors completely so that nobody could get out. They said that they would bring them food, but that promise was never realized. After the city was reopened, they found that whole family had died. Is this what the West wants for themselves?
In the same vein as my last question, what do you think of countries implementing very harsh vaccine mandates and segregating people based on medical status?
I'm
against harsh vaccine mandates. I think, for one, at the time when the vaccines haven't been completely tested, to start forcing everybody to have them is not right. And when we don't know if there is any residual harm that could come from the vaccines, I think it should be up to each individual's choice. And I think that there are potential side effects from the vaccines that haven't been talked about in the media, having to do with blood clots and other things. And I think that not talking about that is a kind of propaganda. It's misleading. And this I don't accept this kind of media self-censorship that's going on. For example, if you look up side effects from the vaccines on DuckDuckGo, and you look at the same search for the same things on Google, you'll see that the differences are vast. And the thing that I want to emphasize the most is that if we don't investigate the origins of this virus, if we don't get to the bottom of it, then in the West we will have countless of these kinds of viruses that will come one after the other.
China has supposedly relaxed its one-child policy, but there are still reports that forced abortion is common. Is this still a problem? And other than the persecution of political dissidents and these lawyers and activists, what are some of the biggest human rights problems in China right now?
According to the law, of the one-child policy law, the Communist Party can still force an abortion if they wanted to do that. And in 2005, because of the work that we did against the one-child policy, in my area of Shandong, there were around 90,000 babies that were born. And I think that if at that time they had stopped the one-child policy, between that time and now, their population problem would have been avoided. So what other things should we be paying attention to? And one of those things is the use of Western technology to create their networks of movement recognition systems and facial recognition systems that they use to control the population. And the other thing is a health number that everybody has to have now, and through that, and it will change color depending on your status, they can control the Chinese population. And it used to be that if an activist were going to go participate in something, if the Chinese Communist Party wanted to prevent them from leaving or prevent them from partaking in something, they would send a bunch of thugs to go and prevent them from going. But now, what they can do is, on a computer, they can change the status of somebody's, say, vaccination status or other health information to make it so they can't even buy a plane ticket or a train ticket to go somewhere. So in the last 2 years, the Chinese Communist Party's ability to control the population via this technology has just skyrocketed. I think that's not only something that we need to worry about in China under the Chinese Communist Party. I think we can see that happening at our doorsteps now in the United States and in Europe.
If you could speak to President Biden right now, what would you say to him? What would your message be to him?
会跟他说
I would say to him, under no circumstances, no matter how big the benefit, on the one hand, should you sell off our American values of human rights, freedoms, rule of law. If you make agreements with the devil, then the harm will be greater than you can imagine.
Tell us a little bit about your escape from China and coming to the U.S. What was that like?
好的，实际上呢，
So actually, even before I was let out of jail, a week before I was let out of jail, the Communist Party had made my village into a prison. So when I got home, there were 70 or 80 guards around the village watching us and not letting us go anywhere. And they put up 7 high-powered lights around my home, and they had a crew of guards, revolving guards, that came to live inside our yard and in our home, and they would curse us and abuse us. They had 7 video cameras, surveillance cameras, watching us around my village. And also cell phone jammers put up so we couldn't call out or communicate with anybody. Communist Party officials took many dozens of thugs into our house to beat us. And this happened 3 times. They even threw my wife onto the ground and kicked her and beat her mercilessly. And it was after that I decided that I had to find a way to escape. And we tried many times to escape, and each time was unsuccessful until April 20th of 2012. And when, at just a moment when the guards had their attention elsewhere, I made it to the stairway at the edge of our yard to a wall and went over the wall. And in this whole process of escape, I went over 8 walls and crossed over 9 rings of guards that were set up around our village. I went over fields, through a wooded area. I crossed a river until I made it to a neighboring village. And after I went over the 5th wall, I was very close to some guards, but I'd broken 3 bones in my foot. So after that, I essentially had to crawl, and it was extremely difficult. And when I got to the 7th wall, my experience had been that there wasn't a wall there, and suddenly there was a wall. And the only thing I had to do, that I was able to do, was to take it down. So I was standing on 1 foot. I very, very carefully took each stone down and put it very gently on the ground so that it wouldn't make any sound at all, because there was a guard close by. So when I got the wall down to about my waist level, I was able to go over and continue. And I heard a guard bring his stool out to a different place, and I realized, I'm not able to go, because now he's back in my line of sight. But then a while later, the rain started again, and it covered up much of the little sounds. I heard him bring his bench back under maybe the side of a roof or something like that. And I thought, this is a sign from God, from heaven, that I can go. And so I kept going. And by the time I got to the neighboring village, because I'd had to crawl, my knees and my elbows were completely bloody, and I was soaking from the rain, and I looked horrible. In their neighboring village, there was somebody who I had once helped in the one-child policy campaign. And so I managed to find that person, and they put me in one of their little sheds. And from there, they were able to get in touch with some of my family, and later I was able to get to Beijing. Once in Beijing, we got in touch with the American embassy. the Chinese Communist Party found out about it, and they sent 4 spy cars to follow us. And we had 2 hours of a chase in the embassy cars being followed by these the Chinese operatives. And finally, we made it to the embassy. And following that, in the embassy, the United States government and the Chinese government engaged in a pretty intense negotiation. By the end of it, the Chinese Communist Party had no choice but to let me and my family come to this free land, to America. I am so grateful for America, for the American people, for taking us in. And I will do whatever I can to make this an even better place.
Can you tell us about the people on the posters behind you?
Gao Zhisheng, behind me is Gao Zhisheng, and he is a lawyer. And in 2005, it was about the same time that he, as when I started to get involved in human rights, that he started to speak up about injustices in society. And he was active in my case as well when I was under detention and in jail. And when there was a time when he was coming back to Shandong to speak up about my case, and he was captured and put in jail and put in prison. He was sentenced, but then put on probation, but was put in a secret detention facility. He was tortured while he was being detained, and then he was put in prison for 3 years, and he has now been disappeared for over 4 years. Nobody knows where he is. Nobody knows if he's alive or dead. Behind me on the other side is Zhang Zhan, and she was also a lawyer, and she was somebody who promoted the idea of the Chinese Association of Lawyers, that the head of that organization should be elected by the other lawyers, other members, instead of being appointed by the Chinese Communist Party. And because of speaking up about the Lawyers Association, she had her legal the right to practice law revoked. As a result, she became a citizen journalist, and when the pandemic broke out in Wuhan, she traveled there to see what the situation was like under lockdown and how many people had died from the pandemic. She traveled to Wuhan from Shanghai, and another thing she was doing in Wuhan was trying to investigate the Wuhan Institute of Virology to try to understand the origins of the virus, how it had gotten out into society. And as a result, she was the Chinese Communist Party sent police to take her back to Shanghai. And she was detained on May 14th of last year. She was 去年 of last year. And since that time, she has been on a hunger strike, and she all the way till now. And she's 1.7 meters, and is now weighs about 40 kilograms. So she's lost a lot of weight, and her situation is extremely critical right now. And her family is not allowed to visit her, not allowed to see her, and reports are that her situation is very dire. She can't lift her head up by herself. Every day they're force feeding her through her nose, and her hands are tied put in handcuffs. The Chinese Communist Party will crack down severely on anybody who tries to investigate the virus and tries to tell the rest of the world about this. And I hope that people will speak out about Zhang Zhan and will know more about her. And I hope that the rest of the world will insist on investigating the origins of the virus and getting to the bottom of that. And the CCP should be held responsible for their role in this.
And we've got to continue to fight for freedom, because the lockdowns, the vaccine mandates, the travel restrictions, which, by the way, are still implemented. Do you know that as a non-vaccinated, non-US citizen, you're not supposed to come into the United States at all? It's the same in Canada, by the way. So these things are absolutely insane. The land of the free has become something unbelievable. Non-vaxxed non-Americans can fly to like 97 countries or so, absolutely freely, but not to America, the land of the free. That's insane. But that insanity is not there just because of President Biden, and in Canada because of Justin Trudeau. They want to enforce it on the whole wide world. Remember the international pandemic treaty that's being worked on? It's had some setbacks, sure, but it's still being played out. It's still being pushed. Let's hear in this interview from Reggie Littlejohn what it's all about.
So you shouldn't be surprised if you haven't heard about this, because almost no one has heard about it, because the Biden administration has deliberately tried to keep it as secret as possible, and the mainstream media is not covering it. So thank you so much for covering this. So what happened basically is that the Department of Health and Human Services of the Biden administration submitted a set of so-called amendments to a 2005 treaty, which are, if passed, and it looks like they're going to pass unless we take some action immediately. If they are passed, it will seriously undermine and damage the sovereignty of the United States. So, what these amendments do is they are an amendment to a 2005 treaty where everything was voluntary. They make a lot of the stuff that was voluntary mandatory. And one of the things that it does, for example, there's a provision that is within the 2005 treaty that is stricken from the amendments that requires the WHO to have the consent of the country where the health event is happening in order for the WHO to take action. So just with that one striking of that, it means the WHO, and it's really the Director General of the WHO, which is Tedros, will have the ability to come into a country and take action on a so-called health event without the consent of the country. They don't define a health event. So it could be anything. It's anything that affects public health. Okay? Could be a pandemic. Could be gun violence. Could be climate change. Could be mental health. Could be anything that they want to say is a health event. So basically, they can do anything that they want and just come into the United States and effectuate their will. They've established something called a compliance committee, which is appointed. Who's going to appoint them? Tedros? Do we trust people that Tedros is going to be appointing? And by the way, whoever gave the World Health Organization the authority to do this, they are not an elected body. They are just an administrative body. They're supposed to be advisory, helping governments. They're not supposed to be dictatorial over governments. WHO is an arm of the United Nations. We do not want the United Nations dictating our healthcare in the United States. And they are deeply in bed with China. The United Nations is, the WHO is. We saw this in the way that they handled the pandemic, particularly in the beginning, where the WHO went along with China's lies that there was no evidence of human-to-human transmission. And also they opposed Trump's decision to stop international travel from China, saying it was racist. So what that did is it enabled the virus to be spread all over the world. The WHO just worked hand in hand with the Chinese Communist Party to cover up their malfeasance, and the result is that millions of people died. Why should they be entrusted with international health care? So the Biden administration tried to hide it. Somebody found it, and so now people are trying to raise awareness, but it's almost too late. It's like it's like the horse has left. That it is, you can't bring it back. The one thing I would say is, even if it does pass, we have a 6-month grace period, and we need to take every action we possibly can to stop this in the United States and worldwide. I had mentioned there's a compliance committee that is going to be appointed, no doubt by Tedros. And they're going to have the power to monitor compliance within a nation and to facilitate compliance. Okay, so how are they going to monitor? How are they going to monitor our efforts if it's not through something like a vaccine passport, smart health card, digital ID? What this is going to do is it's going to give the World Health Organization the ability to surveil all of us in a way that's going to be very similar to the vaccine passport, which is the same platform as the China social credit system. Everything can be attached to this. It's a tool of totalitarian control and mass surveillance. And then they can facilitate compliance. So let's say the WHO says, you need to vaccinate everybody, you need to lock everybody down, anyone who's not vaccinated needs to be quarantined, or how about this? Everyone who's not vaccinated is suffering from some kind of a mental illness, right? I mean, they could say people who question election integrity, who think maybe that there was some form of election fraud in the 2020 election.
Yeah, they're psychotic.
They're psychotic. I mean, there was already a bulletin from it was from the it's from the National. It's right here. The National Terrorism Advisory System. National Terrorism Advisory System that said that people who think that there was election fraud or who take issue with the COVID narrative are domestic terrorists. Wow. So these things are working together: the domestic terrorism thing and this WHO power grab to really impose globalism on the United States and the world.
So let's not forget what came in our even recent past, what we had to fight for. We might have been given a little reprieve, but why were we given that? Also because of the heroes who fought. I don't want you to forget the Canadian truckers. They were regular guys like you and me. They weren't stars or very talented. They were hardworking Canadian truckers, willing to fight for freedom because they needed to put bread on their tables for their kids. They wanted the freedom for their children to be able to go outside and play, to be able to go unmasked to school, to be able to live freely, not to enter a communist dictatorship. I was so privileged to talk to some of these guys. Let's have a look at them again and remember who they were and what they stood for. They're ordinary people, and we need to do just as they did, to stand for freedom and fight.
Eternal Father, in the most holy name of Jesus, by the infinite merits of his most precious blood, we beg thee to send thy Holy Spirit. This is John-Henry Westen for LifeSiteNews, coming to you from Parliament Hill here on this, I think we're at 15 days of the trucker protest. It's been going since January 28th. It's unbelievable. As you can see, it's still very, very cold. The sun is out shining, the music's playing, there are people dancing. We're gonna go get to some of those truckers to see what they're doing, what they've been up to. Today's Valentine's Day, so a lot of them are here apart from their loved ones, apart from their families. They've sacrificed themselves already for weeks on end. They're willing to stay here for weeks longer to fight for our freedom. Let's go meet some of them now.
This weekend was the biggest one yet, I would say, too. There was just more energy, more crowds.
I watch our national broadcasters at night, and I want to keep up to date on the lies they're telling, but it just makes me so upset, the downright lies. This weekend there was incredible energy, tens of thousands of people, concerts, activities for the kids, and what I saw in the news was they said 4,000 people were there, and they showed a shot that must have been taken at like 8 in the morning or something, because there was just a smattering of people around, and I was like, you guys, like, how do you even find these shots? I've met Jewish people and Muslims and Christians and there they go hogging. You got to come up with new creative ways to honk. Yeah, and then there's, so yeah, just people of all stripes and all backgrounds and accents, and lots of French people, lots of Eastern European, which is not surprising.
Yeah.
They know,
For them, they get
yeah, they know what government overreach looks like, and they are very upset and afraid for this country that we've seen that before. That's why we came here, and we don't want to see that again. So.
It's an amazing thing. It's funny, a lot of Canadians who are born and raised here, they can't see the communism for what it is, and all the Eastern Europeans are like, hello, we all saw this before.
So everything you see, like, and all the food, and that's not coming through any GoFundMe money, anything like that. Everything that, the fuel that's gone into all these trucks for the last 2 weeks plus, that's all just been donated. Friends of mine were here helping to shuttle gas for a while. Please don't arrest them, police. And they went to the gas station, and there was like a farmer was there. He's like, oh, is this for truckers? And they were like, yeah. And he's like, put it on me. And that's the kind of thing that happens all the time here. I get texts all the time of like, hey, I'm coming to Ottawa, like with some fuel, and or I got some supplies. What do you guys need? So we put up a sign that said, we need Starlink internet. And then that same night, someone came by and was like, hey, I can hook you guys up. So now we got a Starlink internet.
That's awesome.
The dish is up top, but you can get a shot of it later.
That's amazing.
So that's the kind of stuff that happens. We have a need. I was actually just talking. Actually, you might enjoy meeting Mike. You might need to. He can be a bit of a potty mouth, but maybe he can keep it on the DL for you. Great guy though, and he's telling me last night how his window has become like a confessional. And he said every day someone new, he rolls down the window and they're sharing their story and they're pouring their heart out to him and brings tears to his eyes. And and I just thought for this rough potty mouth trucker to be talking about how he's running a confessional out of his truck in downtown Ottawa, it's just something quite powerful about that. So
I'm going in the back.
Hey, how are you?
How you doing, bud?
Sorry. There.
So we're here with Mike from Niagara, who's been camped out here now for over 2 weeks, is that right?
That's right, yeah. Since January 28th.
So one of the interesting stories we heard from Dave is that you've had somewhat of a confessional in your truck. You open the window and talk to people. Tell us about that and how that strikes you.
Well, I mean, I just said it a few days ago, just kind of in joking, right? But that's kind of what it's like for me. Like, I crawl out of the bunk at whatever time, sometimes 7, sometimes 9, whatever, right, you know. I come jump in the seat and open the window, and it's like confessional's open for the day, you know. And I find, and then I want to close the window because I'm cold, but I can't because it shuts everybody out, you know. This is like, you know, this is a spot people come to share. Like, there are lots of spots too, but this spot here is, I can't close the window.
Yeah.
Can't. What haven't I heard? I mean, the range of emotions, the stories that at first made me sad, right? Because I didn't really realize how bad this was for people, because it wasn't bad for me at all, you know what I mean? I don't know, COVID, the pandemic, the restrictions, mandates, none of it has touched me, you know? Then I'm here for 2-3 days, and the stuff I heard from other people, it's like, whoa, man. Like, just everything. Families that don't talk to each other anymore, seniors dying alone, you know they're scared. Of course you're scared when you're dying, man, you know. Got to be a little bit. You know, the people that built the country dying by themselves. And, you know, nurses, truckers, all kinds of people been in their job 20, 30 plus years, you know, and boom, job is gone, and they got mortgages and kids, and it's wild. At first it kind of, whoa, like I had no idea. It was just so sickening, really, for lack of a better word. It was sickening. How 2 years had gone by, I didn't realize how deep this ran. You know, what it was all about. Like, it was a real eye-opener, man. So I called my people back home. I told them, yeah, you know, all that stuff I was going to do, well, something came up. And I knew I couldn't leave, you know what I mean? And now I'm right next to the sidewalk, so, you know, I got to give people access to it, right? Sorry.
Yeah. No.
Happy Valentine's Day to you, my love. We love you too. God bless you. It's been quite a trip, man. And now, when I hear the stories, I don't cry as often as I used to because they don't shock me anymore. You know, I don't know how I even feel about that, but I'll tell you, it definitely fuels me, and it hardens my resolve for what this is all about. And this is not about some white racist this, or, you know, some movement of that, or a specific religion. It's the beauty of this is it's every kind of Canadian, coast to coast here, and we're all fighting for the same thing. Just our basic human rights, man. And that spans everything. It's not a unique movement. This is an every single one of us movement, you know. And I'm telling you, the variety of people that come to my door, it's just mind. The variety of people I've been out there hugging and crying together with. Didn't see this coming.
So your own family, your wife, your daughter, they're supporting you in this. What are their thoughts?
My entire family is like, you know, they're 100% behind it. You know, I have one family member, probably not so much, but other than that, yeah, they're all they're all fired up about it because I'm here. You know what I mean? They're even drawn into it more, so which is good. You know, my family's cool. So
it's a neat kind of a war where the dad goes off to war and the soldier, and then the family gets to visit you at the front line.
Yeah, the very front line, right? Yeah, it's pretty neat, man. But it's good for them. Like, I'm glad they got to come. Not only walk around and see it, but I've invited a lot of people to come sit in that seat. And I say to people every day, I said, come spend an hour in this seat. You watch what I see out here in my front window, and you watch and listen to what comes to my door. Spend an hour in that seat. It's pretty wild, man. Oh, yeah, and I mean, my window will be open till midnight, right? And even like this one dude here, Mike, with the umbrella hat, he's out there boogieing all day long. He'll come in time to time, get warm, right? And there's another girl, Shay, she's another foot warrior, and I mean, all kinds of them, like, but the other night, Shay was sitting on the bunk, Mike's sitting in the seat, all three of us were like, oh. Yeah, I don't know what time of night it was, but we were all so tired, right? Like, it's something else, man, it really is.
Yeah, and you've been doing this now for weeks, so but you say you still have it in you to stay longer.
As long as it takes. As long as it takes. Everybody asks me, how you doing today? Excellent. Doing excellent. Look what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure we'll all sleep for a good week, curl up in a ball when we get out here, right? But in the meantime, man, this is, you know what? People have been suffering for 2 years, 2 weeks. You know what I mean? I mean, the things, you know, like my grandfather and great-grandfather, even my dad in the Navy, right? Like, just things they did over the years to give us this, you know what I mean? Like the sacrifices they made, this is nothing. You know, I find it kind of, I don't know. I don't like the word hero, as I don't think anybody else does either, because I don't feel that way. You know what I mean? Like 2 years I rolled along and did nothing about it. I don't, you know, and now look at what's the temperature out there. Look at these foot warriors out here. I'm toasty warm in here. Look at these people. They supply us with everything. Fuel for the trucks, fuel for our souls, and everything in between. It's just amazing. So I love Canada now. And you know what? It's wild too. I'll tell you guys this, and it's not a great thing to say, but it's the truth. You know? But 3 weeks ago, I hated every one of you. Hated you all. I was so sick of the COVID madness and how miserable everybody was, and just, and everybody just wrapped up in their own little world, and nobody cared about nobody else, and it's just, and now it's just, like, we're all going to leave here changed, you know? All of us will leave here changed, for sure. And it's cool, man. I mean, the people I've met, like I say, from every description of human being that has been, like, you know, young mom in here the other day breastfeeding her kid. She's a warrior out there. Her and her mom came and got my laundry today. Brought it back to the house. She's going to go do my laundry, my bedding and everything. You know what I mean? Just one example of thousands of examples. That's all on all these streets. It's just mind-blowing. Yeah, what an experience this has been, boy. I mean, the most significant and profound thing any of us will ever be a part of in our lives. You know, and I don't care who you are, man. Like, if you're here for the right reasons, you will leave here changed.
That's so
You know?
Well, God bless you for what you do.
God bless you guys for getting the word out, you know, and everything else you do when stuff like this isn't going on, because I know you guys are working hard every day of the year.
Do you mind if we pray?
Not at all. I'd appreciate it.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. Eternal Father, in the most holy name of Jesus, by the infinite merits of his most precious blood, we beg of thee to send thy Holy Ghost upon Michael, thy servant. Ask this by the powerful intercession of Blessed Mary, ever Virgin. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive
try
those
to forgive those who trespass against us.
and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
That is the
Kingdom, the power, and the glory,
forever and ever. Amen. Booyah.
God bless you.
God bless you. What's your name, brother?
John-Henry Westen. I'll give you our
What's your
card
name?
so that you have
Miles.
Thank you
Good to
so
meet you,
much.
Miles. It's just wild. Yeah.
God bless you, Mike. We'll let you get back to your confessions.
Hey, what do you, I don't know what you're peddling, mister, but you
A
take
little boy
that.
wants to give you a flower here. I couldn't
All right,
turn him away.
Oh, yeah. I want to give him something too. Thank you, buddy. Here now. Can you pull on this for me? Here, give that a good tug. Give it a pull. Yeah. Man. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. God bless you. I love you.
And I want to tell you too that it's not only just to be able to stand for freedom. We've got to be able to prepare ourselves for what's coming. What's coming looks pretty serious. And I kid you not, prepping is a needed activity. We had an opportunity to show how some people are doing prepping. Take a look at this.
So yes, friends, the bubble is about to bust. Food shortages, record gas prices, runaway inflation. The real estate market could bust any day now. Who knows? And it certainly doesn't help that we have Mr. Magoo as President of the United States. Once again, we are living under a nuclear threat. So, of course, we have to be praying. But friends, we also need to be prepping.
I mean, it's really clear that our way of life is changing. Oh my gosh, we could be in The Walking Dead at any moment, or something along those lines, right? We could be living on, with nuclear fallout 70 miles down the road. We could have food shortages for years. Like, these are serious problems. There's many threats out there, spiritual, material, whatever you want to, however you want to classify them. But the biggest threat that I know we're all going to face is the economic collapse of the debt system. So one of the keys to prepping, Walter, is food storage. And there are multiple ways to store food. When storing bulk items, my go-to is a food grade bucket, which you can get at Lowe's. You can order them on eBay, you can order them on Amazon. I'm gonna fill this up most of the way. So this is gonna get used relatively quick, like within the next few months. I have a family that likes to bake. And so this stuff, they'll go through it relatively quickly. So you don't want to just leave it in these bags. The reason for that is because you may have to deal with rodents at a specific time. And that's so totally a non-starter. And you always want to inspect what's coming in. Awesome. Okay, so one of the backbones of the homestead for sure is your chickens, your chicken supply. I think everyone should have chickens. These are called red sex lynx, and they've been amazing for us. They produce really well, and they're really easy to deal with. They're okay if you hold them. And if you have kids on the homestead, that's a big deal. And they produce a lot. So as long as you feed them well, you shelter them okay, and give them water, they give you eggs, and it's wonderful.
How many eggs per week do you get out of chicken?
I would say it depends on how good of layers they are. For these, I'm getting about 8 to 9, but I feed them twice a day, and and that's at the peak laying season. During different types of weather, they lay at different amounts, and they need light to lay, so they peak usually in the summer. But these have been great because they've laid throughout the winter, and that was really wonderful. Anyone can do chickens. They're super simple and user friendly. Food production is going to be huge when things go awry, and having a sustained model of that is key. So I did raised beds here, probably expand that. Like I said before, I've made a lot of mistakes, and so I decided to try it from scratch. Your soil is really huge. Basically, if you think gardening or farming is throwing a seed in the ground and then watering it a little bit and you're done, that is not the way it goes. You need like good soil preparation, make sure the water is happy, go out, sing to your garden, whatever you got to do. Weed. Those are the types of things that help create a healthy garden and healthy lifestyle, because one of the things that's also great about gardening is that it de-stresses you, and just getting your hands in the dirt is a really therapeutic practice. And if things have really gone south, it's one way to just kind of reconnect with what's real and what's wholesome. An armed society is a polite society, in my opinion. We all think about the police as being our backstop, and they are, right? But when the grid goes down, for example, generically, forget the cause, but say when the grid goes down, where are the police going to be? They're either going to be at the station, wrapping it up, or they're going to be at home defending their families. I mean, we saw what happened in Minneapolis when the police department let their police station burn and let communities burn. Where were the police? Well, the police were handicapped. The populace had enough for whatever reason, and they were essentially, public enemy number one at that point. But when the police go away, my point is that you're on your own.
9901 emergency. We got individuals breaching the gate at the 3rd precinct.
All right, Walter, we're just going to work on some basics today. We're going to work from the low ready to a firing position and just transition there. And we're going to work on going out and coming back in. Okay? All right. So here's your Kimber.
Thank you.
Here's my Glock. So basically, we're going to have a nice grip, and then we're going to start here, okay, with our thumbs generally together, kind of in the middle of your body. And the reason for that is that you've got your barrel pointed down. No one's going to get shot unless there's already a bad guy on the floor and he's in the line of fire. But this allows you to look on 180 degrees, even look behind you, and then address the threat as soon as it comes out. So we're going to press out from the low ready and just practice that. So we're going to go here, press out, back, press out, back, press out. Very good. I believe that everyone should have a firearm. If you're going to start and you don't know where to start, I think a pistol, a Glock is my choice and recommendation for most people. Just because the Glock is commonly available, it's kind of stupid simple, it's really reliable, they're priced modestly, police departments use them and all that. And then training, get the ammo that you need and magazines or whatever, but like training so that you can be effective. How I think about it is, the parable of the 10 virgins, right? The virgins that carried extra oil got to go to the wedding feast. And it's a mysterious parable in a lot of ways, right? Because the people who were initially prepared, they were down for the whole event. They didn't have what they needed to get into the event, and then they were shut out. So there's God in my reading of Scripture and in my view of church teaching requires those who are aware to be prepared to see to our needs and to the needs of others. You can't do that if you don't have something to give. And if you know something bad's happening or could happen or is likely to happen or may happen, you have a certain obligation, in my view, to prepare for that.
So Jim, the most important and central aspect of preparedness is situational awareness.
Oh yeah, I know what that. I do that all the time, man.
That's great. I mean, right. So throughout life, wherever you're at, you want to have your head on a swivel. Right. Yeah. You want to be looking left. You want to be looking right. You want to be looking ahead of you. You want the scene to be. Hey, dude, move. What?
I think you have an issue right
behind you. No, you're gonna have the issue if you don't get out of here.
This is a film shoot. Look. It's a film.
What? What? No!
And finally, we want to give you our Mother Miriam Minute.
The only thing at stake is the soul of your children, not your financial means. God will always provide, not in the lifestyle you may desire, but he will always provide. King David wrote in the Psalms, I've never seen the righteous begging bread. He will provide for those who love him, who follow him. He works all things together for good, not for everybody, but for those who love him, Romans 8:28, and are called according to his purpose. So don't fear, beloved. Don't let the world guide your life with God. Don't let circumstances determine how you raise your children and get one another to heaven. Don't let any of that affect you. Put the soul first. Put your faith first and learn how to live without a job, without finances, and soon without electricity. You need to learn to do that. If you wait, you're going to be in trouble. So don't wait.
Did you catch that? And I think that is so very important. The fact that what we need to do is not only to trust in God, but to love him, because all things work for good for those who love him. No, as Mother said, not for everybody, for those who love him. Do you love him? What did Jesus say about those who love him? If you love me, follow my commandments. If you love me, take up your cross and follow me. If you love Christ, you will be spending time with him. He asked his apostles, can't you pray 1 hour with me? We've got to do that. We got to love Christ, because if we do that, we know that all things will work for good for us. For LifeSite News in Focus, this September 11th, 2022, may God bless you.